All right, haven't broadcast on this channel a long time, but
Awesome.
I just thought it'd be cool to do because this is mainly for our Meds Cafe people. We got somebody watching. That's cool.
Hello to the internet out there.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me again, Jamie. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about this powerful medicinal plant ally that we have.
right on. So we did get this rolling a couple weeks ago. We were kind of shooting from the hip a little bit, and
Yeah,
wasn't that formal, but we got some good participation, and we just got it started was really the main thing. And there is, some good stuff there for people to review, but you kind of have more of a pointed discussion about tinctures and some other good information. And so to get that on record, if this is people are watching it live, this is the Cabbage Cafe channel, temporarily being used for this broadcast, but it will be on the Meds Cafe channel for further review shortly, after it's recorded. So you could be watching it from there. And oh, cool! Check it out. Because I use this Jazz Cabbage channel, there are people here who certainly not directly affiliated, but are watching and also have a lot of great knowledge about cannabis. Red Setters with the Michigan Bros Grow Show, which is a vastly popular show on growing and other topics. And
I love it.
yeah, that's cool that we're
Well, I mean, I'm
sharing.
hoping, and I'm sorry to interrupt. Questions. This is a conversation.
Anybody, right? Anybody,
Yes,
but all good info is what
I
we're
love it.
after.
Great.
So yeah. So anyway, man, how about floor is yours, Dr. Evan, and we'll see if we do have some questions and some follow up, maybe discussion.
Okay. So thanks again, Jamie, and I appreciate the ability to do this and educate and empower people. Shortly, we're going to talk about tinctures. I want to really educate people about tinctures. It's a very underutilized product category that exists when we're talking about cannabis consumption. But before we begin, I have to a few things, and I'll be looking at my screen, my second screen here. So please bear with me. The main kind of again idea here is to empower and educate the general consumer, patients, and bud tenders. Okay, and to lead to a conscious cannabis user, it's very important because this plant is a very powerful medicinal plant. It creates very compounds that interact with the human biology in a very intense manner. It's not for everybody, but for a lot of people, it can be a very effective tool. And I want to also really, from the beginning, iterate that the information that I'm going to be talking about is for educational purposes only. It's not medical advice. If you are using cannabis for medicinal reasons, please talk to your healthcare provider. Take advantage of that. It's very important, and that you know to realize that it's again a very powerful medicinal plant. It's not for everybody. Start low and go slow is very important. The other kind of disclaimer I want to do is that to say I should is that I am a cannabis coach. I'm a medical doctor, but I really focus 100% on cannabis. So as a cannabis coach, and I also have a cannabinoid based brand called Dr. Evans Herbal Solutions, which some of my products are in Meds Cafe stores. So go and talk to your bartender about all the products they really have. They're excellent, and part of what we do in this is for the bartenders as well to educate them and empower them so they can be of service to the general public and the consumers, the adult consumers that are going to the stores. Um, having said that, again, what I want to really have a conversation with you today is tinctures, because I believe it's a very underutilized product category that's very important. And I want to, before we really dive into it, I want to make two general ideas that I think are very important, and to put it in context, okay, that what we're trying to really elucidate here is that there is a downstream effect, meaning once we use cannabis, something will happen to the human body, and we can kind of have a good input in that downstream effect. Okay, that to understand that this is a chemical conversation that's happening in the human body in the with the endocannabinoid system, which is what I call a chemical communication system, let's say, in the human body. So the chemical conversation that is happening with the endocannabinoid system and these very powerful plant derived compounds. And the idea is that we can dictate the initial conditions in the body. We can have a very important say on how this interaction happens. And because of that, then we can kind of dictate, cannot in absolutes, it doesn't really work that way, but we can have a pretty good idea or a pretty good powerful input in the downstream effect. What's up, Jim? So to realize that we're talking about the importance of that as a consumer when you go into a dispensary, to realize that you can have a very powerful impact in that conversation. Okay. The second important kind of overall idea that I want to express is that there are three parameters that can really help with that, meaning the what, the how, and the how much. This is what I call basically the what cannabinoids ratios, the how methods of administration, and the how much dosing and titration. So, by controlling these three parameters, which a tincture is a very important aspect of that, you can again have an input in the downstream effect. So, realize me as an adult, we as adults, sovereign, human bodies that we are, we can choose how, what type of ratio of cannabinoids will I put in my body. Very important in the downstream effect. THC very different than CBD, very different than CBN. Okay, methods of administration, how I introduce cannabis into the body, again plays a big role in the downstream effect. And then the how much dosing and titration, especially for patients and people that want to control symptoms. Tiny amount goes a long way. Okay, start low and go slow. It's very important. So um, if we, and again, the overall idea here that if you want to use cannabis for well-being, you can do that. You want to use cannabis for symptom control, you can do that. You want to use it for intoxication and euphoria, again, we are sovereign adult human beings. Guess what? We can do that as well. We just have to empower and educate ourselves and realize the different product categories that exist when we go into a dispensary like Meds Cafe. Okay, so the different categories of products, which tinctures is, and this again to think about when I go into a dispensary, there are different tools for the toolbox because the different categories and give you different effects, so to speak. Okay, so the first category is inhalation. We put it into our lungs. Okay, you can smoke a joint, a vape pen, concentrates, let's say, all sorts of different products. The second product category, which is very important, is ingestion. Eat edibles, basically, and you can have different types of edibles, different ratios, different doses, very different. Again, you can pick and choose from that category what is the appropriate product for you, or as a bartender to really educate the consumer in front of you of what are they trying to accomplish and what edible or what product category they can use to really achieve what they're trying to achieve. Okay, the third category is the tinctures, oral mucosal administration, we were going to talk about a little bit further, and the fourth is creams and skin application, basically. So tinctures, one of my favorite product categories for a lot of different reasons. Um, and again, I'm going to be looking at my screen here. So let's begin. What is a tincture? Because a lot of people, novice, cannabis users, that maybe they don't know. The way that I explain to people is the same idea when a person's having a heart attack and you put a nitroglycerin pill under their tongue. Same idea. Okay, there's a lot of vessels under our tongue. So when we put the oil-based tinctures into our mouths, the the cannabinoids from that oil penetrate into the mucosa, into our basically our skin, into our mouths, into that bloodstream, and you feel it. So a tincture is a fast acting but short duration. Okay, so you feel it within 10-15 minutes, let's say, maximum effect within half an hour to an hour. After a couple of hours, 3 hours, let's say, it's out of, you don't really feel the effect. um, and this is another really important aspect of tincture use. is that you have to leave it into the mouth for at least 2 to 3 minutes minimum. Okay, well, a lot of times what I've seen is when you read a product and they say, 30 seconds or a minute, it's not enough. My understanding is that, this time of a minute, let's say, was calibrated by studies that looked at tinctures that were alcohol based. And when you really have the active ingredient, whatever it is in your tincture, and it's suspended in alcohol, the alcohol really is able to open up the mucosa in the skin, in the mouth, and all of a sudden the active ingredients can penetrate the mucosa and you feel it. Okay, but most of the tinctures in dispensaries are oil based. So a person, if they want to use it for a fast acting kind of effect, they need to leave it in the mouth for at least 2 to 3 minutes minimum. People need to know that. So you as a bartender, if you have somebody that is interested in tinctures and the first time they're using it, you need to let them know. Please, yes.
Yeah, just to make this distinction. So you do that so that it gets into the little tiny blood vessels right there, and
Correct.
it gets in that way instead of bringing it into your system and going through the digestive tract and
Correct.
coming in that other way. So it's
Correct.
important if you want to utilize it in that
Yes.
way to
And
do that. And I don't
excellent.
use alcohol. I know they're not sold anyway, but I don't
Correct.
quit drinking it. I know it's not that big of a deal, but just to like avoid the whole thing, I just it's not
Yes, no, no, for sure, and
myself.
that's the point that we're talking about the suspension fluid basically that you put the active ingredient. Very different alcohol in comparison to oil, and people need to understand that. And but also to your point, which was very great segue, and why I love tincture so much is that a tincture gives you is very versatile, maybe the most versatile product that you can have, because you can use it as a tincture, meaning you leave it in the mouth and you allow the medication or the cannabinoids to be penetrated into the mouth and then you feel it. The same fluid now, if you put it in the mouth and you swallow right away, it's an edible. Works differently. Goes into your blood, go into your GI, and then into your liver, and then into your bloodstream to feel it. Different effect. Okay. And the third way that you can use potentially a tincture, which is still you can use it, not that I would necessarily say that to go buy a tincture for this, is skin application. The same oil, let's say you have a cut and you're worried about you know um, having a scar, you can potentially put a little bit of that tincture on that scar or that cut and decrease of pain or decrease of formation of scar formation. So as a tincture, that fluid, three different applications: fast acting as a tincture, you can ingest it right away, you can use it on the skin as well. So it's a very versatile product category. Okay. um, the other thing I want to talk about tinctures is that you can really, the benefit of really manipulating those, the what, the how, and the how much we talked about a little bit earlier, meaning the controlling the downstream effect by controlling the cannabinoid ratios. So a tincture, you can have different ratios straight out of the body, straight out of the product, I should say. I'm sorry. Or, for example, you can have a tincture that is pure THC and a tincture of pure CBD, and you can make the chemistry straight into the mouth, so to speak. Meaning, what will happen to my body if I use a THC tincture? What will happen to my body if I use a CBD tincture? What will happen to my body, or that downstream effect, if I use a combination of the two? Okay, so it affords you that kind of flexibility. The second thing, again, as a method of administration, very versatile. Okay, and as a dosing, the how much, again, you can be very precise on the amount that you put in the body. Okay, you can literally count the drops. Look in front of the mirror and count one drop. If you want to start with just one drop, which is a tiny amount. Again, it depends on the concentration in the body, in the bottle. But for the most part, if you see the average kind of product out there, one drop is a tiny dose. And some people, that's why they want to start, and that's what they really get the benefit. Great. Start with just a drop, okay? Or look, take a spoon and again count the drops. So at the end of the day, you can be very precise with the amount, the volume that you put in your body, and you can be very consistent, which is very important again for understanding how this product from this product category will really interact in my body, and how will that really affect the downstream kind of effect that we will have after the cannabis use. So excellent tool. Okay, different tools for your toolbox. All of these product categories, when you go into a dispensary, or if you're a bartender and you know what you have on your shelves behind you, all of these different product categories give you different effects. It's so different tools for your toolbox. Okay, and again, a tincture very important for that. The other thing I want to just in general, in closing kind of statement, so to speak, is that I love tinctures because also, they don't smell for the most part. Very easy to use. I normally carry my tincture, and if I'm walking down the street and I feel that, oh, I need to use my tincture for whatever reason I want to use it, I open it, I put it in my mouth. Nobody needs to know anything. I close it, put it back in my pocket or in my bag, and no smell, no real issue. And again, not to use it in a way that is not legal, but to realize the benefit of that. That no smell, easy to use, easy to carry as an adult in a state like ours, which we are very fortunate to live in Michigan, a recreational adult use state, which affords us the opportunity to use these types of products. Okay. Precise those. And again, for me, as a bartender, or when I educate bartenders about this, is to realize that tinctures are again an underutilized product category. That if you have somebody coming in and they've smoked or they used edibles all the time, and that they're not as they don't find the benefit they want, or they want something else, or they're looking for a different variety, so to speak. Think about as a bartender to, oh, maybe this person doesn't know about tinctures. Let me talk to him a little bit about tinctures. Let me talk to them about the benefits of tinctures and how to use it, and how to potentially have an additional tool for them, depending on what they want to accomplish. Okay, so again, this conversation is to really educate and empower consumers and bartenders on tinctures, a very effective cannabis tool and cannabis product. And I will stop talking now, and hopefully we'll have some questions. And again, Jamie, thanks for putting this on, and I'm really looking forward to future conversations about other product categories.
All right, and we could have some questions based on people who see this later on, and that type of stuff. But we
I
did
have
want.
I
Oh,
just
sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
yeah. As far as tinctures go, doctor, can you expand on like full spectrum versus the distillate THC tinctures that are out there right now? Because there aren't a lot of full spectrum tinctures I see on the market. I see a lot of just THC distillate, and that's definitely a big difference.
Sure, I agree with you, Jimmy, and that's an excellent question. And as a consumer bartender, you should know the difference and what you put into your body. Very important. Okay, and so to your point, a distillate. Um, so when you take the plant, and then you basically take all the oils that exist in these structures called the trichome. So the plant produces these oils in the female flower, the bud of the cannabis sativa plant. And as a processor, basically, you take the plant material, you separate the plant matter from that oil, and you have a full spectrum oil. Okay, and when we say full spectrum, meaning it's not just the cannabinoids or the THC and CBD, it's everything that exists in the plant. Okay, terpenes, flavonoids, minor cannabinoids, all of these compounds, not maybe all of them, but a huge percentage of those chemicals and compounds have a biological effect. Okay, so that's number one. So when you have a full spectrum oil, we're talking about just an oil that comes straight out of the plant. Then you take that oil and you refine it, just like alcohol distillation. It goes through the distillation process, and you basically separate all of the different cannabinoids and flavonoids and terpenes, and what you're left with is pure isolate. pure, basically THC. Maybe you have tiny percentages depending on how good you are and what type of chemist you are and the type of equipment you have and the initial plant matter that you process. But for the most part, very pure oil of one cannabinoid, THC, as an example. Now, when you use a full spectrum oil in comparison to an isolate oil, again, the chemistry, the biology that happens into the body is a little bit different. For me, I think, especially if you're looking for wellness, symptom control, a full spectrum, you get a little bit better quality, so to speak, or better results, in my kind of opinion and what I've seen anecdotally. And as far as for me, when I use cannabis and I use a distillate oil in comparison to a full spectrum, for my body, my experience is that when I use a pure distillate, yes, I get the effect, but it's more like, let's say, jarring. It's more kind of pointed. Whereas if I use the full spectrum, it's more of a rounded kind of experience. And I know this is very subjective, but it's realize that there's a difference there. There's more, phytocannabinoids, plant derived compounds in the full spectrum that have a biological effect, and we can lean on that. You get a different effect. So for me, and very astutely, Jim, saying about the difference between that in a tincture is very important, because you get different effects.
Excellent. Thanks. And then the other thing I wanted to say is, we spoke on, taking it subliminally, tinctures under the tongue, and how that has a quicker reaction, like 10 to 20 minutes or so. But once you swallow that tincture, you're going to have that secondary reaction anyway. Even though you didn't swallow it right out of the gate, when you swallow it, then you have that, probably hour after you feel that initial 20-minute, come on. Hour after that, it'll pass through your liver, and then you'll get another reaction, correct?
Yes, that can definitely happen, especially depending on the volume that you put in the mouth. If you put like a drop or so, most likely you're not going to feel as much. But if you put 2 or 3 full droppers, only so much as a percentage of that volume will go into into the mouth. Most of it is going to be swollen, and you get, like you said, different effects. So and that again goes to what we were talking about earlier, about the versatility of a tincture, that you can use it oromucosally, which is fast acting but short duration, or you can ingest it, which is more of an extended release. The other thing I want to say, as we were talking about, Jim, and this reminding me, so to speak, that a lot of people, when I talk to especially patients that are doing chemotherapy, let's say, or somebody has a very sensitive biology and they don't want to smoke, but if you use a tincture all the time, you swallow so much oil, sometimes you might have GI issues. So what I tell patients like that, leave it in the mouth for as long as you can and then spit it out. If you're afraid of the effects that you can have of ingestion, guess what? You don't have to swallow it. Leave it in the mouth for as long as you can, and then spit it out. For most parts, though, for me and most people that use tinctures, again, leave it in the mouth for at minimum 2 to 3 minutes, and then swallow the rest, and then you get a little bonus afterwards, cherry on the top.
Right on. Hey, so you mentioned kind of toward the end of your original presentation of some of the discussions somebody might have and some of the reasons you might start introducing, tinctures, and that could be in addition to what somebody's using, or sometimes somebody might find themselves replacing tinctures with something else that they're using, and to have that as another option for people and to be able to explain it, as you said, is what's really cool. So I think we have some good information here to roll with and to draw on, and we could expand on some of this as well. One thing I maybe to think about, and maybe you have some opinion on this now, and I assume it's done with tinctures, although I've never, I don't think, had a product with reintroduced botanical terps. That is often done with other products. and in trying a lot of products over the last few weeks, networking shows, etc., uh, finding myself, depending on the product, getting a really negative reaction, really bad headache, or very doesn't feel like cannabis, to me at all. I've had some things that have those types of terps reintroduced, and I didn't necessarily care for it, but it didn't give me that effect. So somebody suggested there could be concentration of those things that could be doing it, or other reasons. I'm not sure. I'm trying to figure that out. I know that I get a negative reaction to some products, and I just don't know if you've become aware of that or have any uh, thoughts on that, or know how that might work.
Yeah, what I would like to say is that, again, this is a very, each of us is different, and it's important to really take notes, log everything down, be an educated, conscious consumer. I try to do that. Most of the times I fail, I have to admit. I forget to write things down. But if you know that, oh, am I using tinctures or product and I get that effect, write it down. What was the effect? What was the product? Because it is true, our biology is very sensitive, and different concentrations of adulterants, or, like, for example, with CBD, tinctures that you find in, yeah, not, now it's a little bit better, but even just a couple of years ago, or states that would not, like Michigan. Again, we're very fortunate to have it dispensaries, but if you go to a excuse me, a state where you can only get a CBD tincture in a gas station, potentially the quality of that product is not up to par. Okay, you have adulterants, you have solvents, potentially, all, depending on their process. And I'm not saying that this is what you have experienced here, but to reiterate and highlight that, what exists in the product is very important. And that's why people and consumers should go into a dispensary like Meds Cafe and buy from a licensed dispensary, because, again, we're very fortunate that in our states there's a lot of oversight from the state. People need to test their products, and you protect yourself from these types of issues. So not really answering the question, so to speak, but
Well,
I
I
think,
think like when somebody has a response, negative or positive, to be familiar with what the product is and what's doing it, you get more of a chance of getting an extensive maybe test from a commercial purchase. I don't want to discredit those people who have relationships with growers or caregivers, or
no.
who find access in some way that really works for them with good products. I mean, obviously that's possible, but you do get that regulated scenario when you do choose, particularly if you're new. You might want to make sure you're starting off on that ground or something until you perhaps find another comfortable avenue. But I just
Yeah.
want to,
Yeah, for sure. And at the end of the day, we're here to empower and educate the consumer. Okay, it's ultra important. Safety and empowerment of the consumer basis is really number one. And that's what's all about. That's where everybody, I believe, most people in the industry, that's where we come from. We are, users and patients, and we're trying to do the right thing here. And there's no discouragement towards anybody. It just, again, be educated as a consumer, realize that it's not just cannabis, it's, sugar that we put in our bodies and we don't even think about it, and it wreaks havoc in our bodies. So it's not just, it's everything. We have to be conscious about what we put in our bodies, and what are those chemicals and these compounds, how they really interact with the human biology, and how, again, the downstream effect of anything, any compound that we put in our body, coffee, caffeine, it's an incredible, you know uh, chemical that we use ubiquitously with no
I
really
enjoy it.
yeah, second thought, yet it's a very, very powerful, compound. So
I
yeah.
appreciate it, man. I think maybe I'm going to try to learn a little bit more about the botanical terpenes. I understand the molecular similarities are, supposed to not be a significant difference. That's why some people suggest the concentrations as opposed to,
Sure.
unusual concentrations that wouldn't be naturally derived, type things. And and other things. So I might, maybe we'll investigate that a little bit further
Yeah.
just for these products.
No,
And I do know people love them, so it's not like I don't get
correct.
that. Everybody's different, as you were pointing out, and
Yeah,
you have to go through a journey sometimes and figure out what works for you.
terpenes are, again, have a very powerful biological effect. It's not the plant or plants produce them for a reason. They're And I mean, just for me, just thinking about putting a lemon and the lemon rind, and you press it a little bit and you get that lemon in, I start salivating. I'm starting to think about, Greek food and all of these ideas just by smelling some, just by having small molecules going into my nostrils and hitting my nervous system and all of a sudden I get a very powerful effect. Um, we don't think in those terms, and obviously I don't either all the time, but it's to your point. Terpenes have a very important powerful compounds, and the concentration of those terpenes, whatever they're derived directly from the cannabis plant or not, still, we have to be conscious of that.
Right on. Well, I appreciate it, man, and we may have some follow-up stuff down the road. And Red Setter says many licensed stores are candy shops, which I get. So people who are very sensitive, people who have like particular needs, people who need large quantities of things, stuff like that. That caregiver relationships and somebody really working with somebody and creating different products and getting different types to that fit the scenario, particularly if the person's kind of sensitive, the right form, delivery system, all that kind of stuff. You might really need that for those.
And I agree with that. And you talk about candy stores. That's the one great thing about tinctures is most of them don't have added sugar to them at all. And it's better to get hooked and into something that's going to help you, that's not going to hurt you. Like people who really like to do gummies or eat brownies because they seem to work and they're filled with the THC or CBD that they need. But the tincture itself is a pretty pure delivery system.
Sometimes the capsules, the tincture, something different depending on what your goal is.
Exactly.
Yeah, different ways without getting into the sugar and just catering to like the more fun or better tasting way of consuming, or so to speak. So I
Which again,
totally
it's
get
fine. It's everybody's different. We are, again, in my opinion, sovereignty over our own bodies. If you're an adult human being and you choose I also have a sweet tooth. And you want to eat a sweet gummy or something like that. Great. But I think also a lot of people, especially elderly, and that's what I'm working on for Dr. Evans Herbal Solutions, are capsules. Again, we don't need that. Really, if you just want to get again the downstream effect, a capsule or RSO or a tincture, very effective product categories.
Mhm. Right on, man. Well, I really appreciate it. We'll continue this conversation. Hopefully, if everything goes well, with a few more bits of input as people see this, on the Meds Cafe channel,
Okay.
and then we'll talk about some other stuff, in a couple of weeks when we resume, and see where the interest lies. But I really appreciate it. Good stuff, and we'll all be back, and I'll get the channel thing straightened out soon. We have some announcements to make on some new broadcasting stuff on this channel in the future, though, too.
Yeah,
Right
I'm
up.
very excited about this.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be cool. Um, and a lot of products out there that aren't found in dispensaries that are really good. That's for true. That's for sure. But totally, understand the point. Just don't want to, uh,
Yeah.
discredit somebody's access, that's working for them.
No.
But
No,
anyway,
not necessarily. But again, this, I think I want to make this point because I think it's very important. If you are a consumer, just general public, you need to know the concentration. You need to know the dose because it's very important. There are side effects. So understanding a low dose and going in a dispensary like Meds Cafe, where the products are tested, and you understand not only that they're safe in the sense of they're not adulterants and pesticides left over, you also understand the dose. You know the
oh,
volume
totally,
and
man. I
concentration.
get it, man. And it's just
Very important.
it's just not to like narrow it to that. You can people can, depending on their circumstances, find what they need and have, like, and
Sure,
sometimes actually require, that more specialized attention,
sure.
circumstantially. So
And this is
it
the
was
other
just to
thing.
be all inclusive. That's all. But you are correct.
Correct.
Didn't mean to take away at all from that.
No. At the end of the day, again, I've said it several times, and I really believe this. We are very fortunate to live in Michigan. At the end of the day, we can grow our own in the backyard.
Yeah.
We have legally, we can do that.
Even somebody who's
Own
kind of
plants.
sensitive, they can figure out what that should be and then how to then,
Sure.
take it from there.
Yeah.
So anyway, no big deal. Shouldn't probably take too much time up on that, but
No.
but I really appreciate the info. It can be applied to a lot of stuff, a lot of good conversations about these other products that can be tried, and
Yes.
we'll continue the conversation soon. So thanks a lot again, Dr. Evan.
Thank
Jim,
you, my friend. I appreciate you and everything that you do.
and I appreciate people coming in and listening today. That's kind of cool. Thank you
I
guys.
think so too.
Yep,
Yeah,
talk
I'm
to you
looking
soon.
forward to the next one.
Right on. Thanks.
All
Bye.
right, my man. Ciao.